The train rattled to a halt at Prague's main station, and Victor stepped onto the platform, his heart pounding with excitement. The city's medieval spires and cobblestone streets had long captivated his imagination, and now, finally, he was here to begin a new chapter in his life. A young artist, Victor had come to Prague seeking inspiration and a fresh start, leaving behind a troubled past and the suffocating expectations of his small hometown. Heaving his suitcase, Victor made his way through the bustling station, its grand architecture a mix of old-world charm and modern hustle. The cool autumn air was filled with the scent of roasted chestnuts and the sound of tram bells. He navigated the winding streets of Old Town, marveling at the intricate Gothic buildings that lined his path. Each corner turned revealed another scene straight out of a storybook, and Victor felt a deep sense of belonging. Victor's new apartment was nestled in the heart of this historic district, a quaint building with ivy creeping up its ancient stone walls. He fumbled with the heavy brass key, his anticipation growing with each moment. As the door creaked open, Victor was greeted by a flood of natural light streaming through tall, arched windows. The apartment was spacious yet cozy, with wooden beams crisscrossing the ceiling and a fireplace that promised warmth during the cold Prague nights. He took a deep breath, savoring the moment. This was his new home, a place where he could create, dream, and escape the shadows of his past. He spent the afternoon unpacking, his belongings quickly filling the empty spaces. The walls, however, remained bare, waiting for his paintings to bring them to life. As dusk settled over the city, Victor decided to explore his new neighborhood. He wandered through the narrow, winding streets, the gas lamps casting a soft, golden glow. The city was alive with the whispers of history, each building and alleyway holding secrets waiting to be discovered. Returning to his apartment, Victor felt a strange sense of unease. The silence was heavy, and the shadows seemed to dance in the corners of the room. Shaking off the feeling, he lit a fire and settled into an armchair, his sketchbook in hand. He drew the scenes he had witnessed that day, the intricate details of the architecture, the play of light and shadow. But as the fire crackled and the night deepened, Victor's thoughts drifted. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, a nagging sense of being watched. He glanced around the room, his eyes lingering on a large, dusty painting that hung above the fireplace. It depicted a haunting scene, a dark, forested landscape with indistinct figures lurking in the shadows. Victor felt a chill run down his spine. The painting seemed out of place, almost alive in the flickering firelight. He resolved to examine it more closely the next day, hoping it would reveal its secrets. For now, he needed rest. Tomorrow would bring new discoveries, and he was determined to uncover every story that Prague had to offer. Victor extinguished the fire and made his way to bed, the painting's eerie presence lingering in his mind. As he drifted off to sleep, the city's ancient whispers filled his dreams, and the adventure of a lifetime began to unfold. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows, casting a warm glow over Victor's apartment. He awoke with a sense of purpose, determined to investigate the strange painting that had unsettled him the night before. After a quick breakfast, he approached the artwork above the fireplace. Up close, the painting was even more peculiar. The dark forest scene seemed to shift subtly, the figures within it almost breathing. Victor reached out to touch the frame, his fingers brushing against a hidden latch. His heart raced as he pressed it, and with a soft click, the painting swung open like a door. Behind the painting was a small, concealed room. Dust motes danced in the air as Victor peered inside, the dim light revealing a cluttered space filled with old canvases, paintbrushes, and stacks of faded papers. The room had the unmistakable feel of a forgotten studio, abandoned by its previous occupant. Victor stepped inside, curiosity overriding his initial apprehension. He picked up one of the canvases, its surface covered in a thick layer of dust. Blowing it clean, he revealed a haunting image. A man standing alone in a desolate landscape, his face twisted in anguish. The painting was intensely lifelike, almost as if the man's sorrow was trapped within the canvas. As Victor examined more of the paintings, a pattern began to emerge. Each one depicted a different person, all in various states of distress and despair. The artworks were disturbingly realistic, each face rendered with painstaking detail. It was clear that whoever had painted these had immense skill, but also a deep connection to the pain and suffering of their subjects. One painting in particular caught Victor's eye. It showed a young woman in a grand, ornate dress, her expression one of profound sadness. Her eyes seemed to follow him, and he felt an inexplicable pull towards her. On the back of the canvas, he found a name, Anna. Victor's mind raced with questions. Who was Anna? And who had created these haunting works? Determined to find answers, he decided to seek out someone who might know more about the history of the building and its former occupants. He remembered Elena, a local historian he had met briefly when he first arrived in Prague. She had mentioned her interest in the city's rich and often dark history. Victor quickly gathered his notes and some photos of the paintings, hoping Elena could shed some light on his discovery. He found Elena in a small cafe near the Old Town Square, her nose buried in a thick historical text. She looked up and smiled as Victor approached, her eyes sparkling with curiosity as he explained what he had found. Hidden room, cursed paintings. Elena's interest was piqued. This sounds like something out of a Gothic novel. Let's see these photos. As she examined the images, her expression grew serious. These paintings, they're incredibly detailed. And the subjects, they look almost alive. Victor nodded. That's what struck me too. And this one, he said, pointing to the picture of Anna, feels particularly important. Elena's eyes widened. Anna. I've heard stories about a tragic figure by that name, connected to a series of mysterious events in the early 20th century. We need to investigate this further. Together, they delved into the archives, piecing together the history of the building and the lives of those depicted in the paintings. Each discovery led to more questions, and the sense of something dark and unresolved grew. As the day turned to night, Victor felt a mix of excitement and dread. The hidden room and its secrets were just the beginning, and he knew that whatever lay ahead would test his courage and resolve. With Elena by his side, he was ready to uncover the truth, no matter where it led. The chill of the evening air crept into Victor's apartment as he returned from a long day of research with Elena. He lit a fire in the fireplace, hoping to chase away the growing sense of unease. The discovery of the hidden room and the disturbing paintings weighed heavily on his mind, especially the haunting image of Anna. Determined to make sense of it all, Victor settled into his armchair, ready to sketch out his thoughts. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows around the room, and the eerie painting that concealed the hidden door seemed to loom larger than before. Victor's eyes kept drifting toward it, almost as if it were calling to him. He tried to focus on his sketchbook, but a strange, nagging sensation tugged at the edge of his consciousness. As the night deepened, Victor grew more restless. He decided to retire early, hoping that sleep would bring clarity. He extinguished the fire and climbed into bed, the shadows in the corners of the room pressing in on him. Just as he was about to drift off, a faint, almost imperceptible noise caught his attention. At first, Victor thought it was the wind outside, but the sound grew louder, more distinct. It was a low, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails drumming on wood. His heart pounded as he sat up, straining to pinpoint the source. The noise seemed to be coming from the hidden room. Swallowing his fear, Victor grabbed a flashlight and approached the painting. He pressed the hidden latch, and the painting swung open with a soft creak. The tapping stopped abruptly, replaced by an oppressive silence. Victor stepped into the hidden room, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The room was just as he had left it, filled with the unsettling paintings. But something was different. One of the canvases was missing from its place. His flashlight's beam swept across the room, and he found it. The painting of the young woman, Anna, had been moved to the center of the room. Her eyes seemed to follow him with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. Suddenly, the room grew colder, and Victor's breath misted in the air. A soft, whispering sound filled the space, unintelligible yet unmistakably human. The flashlight flickered, and Victor felt a presence behind him. He spun around, but there was nothing there. A voice, faint but clear, echoed in the darkness. "Help me!" Victor's blood ran cold. The voice was coming from the painting of Anna. Her lips, once motionless, now seemed to part slightly as if she were trying to speak. Panic surged through him, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had to understand what was happening. "Who are you?" Victor whispered, his voice trembling. "Anna," the voice replied, barely audible. "Trapped, must find." "Jakub." The flashlight flickered again, and Victor's hand shook. "What do you need me to do?" The voice faded, and the room returned to its oppressive silence. Victor's heart raced as he backed out of the hidden room, closing the painting behind him. He stumbled to his desk, frantically scribbling down everything he had heard. Anna's plea for help, the mention of Jakub, it all seemed connected to the dark history Elena and he had begun to uncover. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, Victor knew he couldn't face this alone. He needed Elena's insight and courage to navigate the supernatural dangers that lay ahead. Together, they would have to confront the malevolent forces tied to the paintings and find a way to free Anna from her cursed existence. Victor's resolve hardened. The spirits of Prague's past were reaching out to him, and he was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The morning sun found Victor pacing in his apartment, the events of the previous night replaying in his mind. He felt a sense of urgency, a need to act quickly before whatever haunted Anna's painting could strike again. Without wasting any time, he gathered his notes and the photos of the paintings, then headed to meet Elena at the cafe near the Old Town Square. Elena was already there, sipping coffee and reading through some historical documents. She looked up, concern evident in her eyes as Victor approached. "You look like you haven't slept," she noted. Victor sighed, sitting down and spreading out his notes. "I didn't. Last night something happened. The painting of Anna. It moved and I heard her voice. She spoke to me, asked for help, and mentioned Jakub." Elena's eyes widened. "This is more serious than we thought. If the spirits are actively reaching out, we need to find out who Jakub is and what his connection to Anna might be." They spent the morning poring over historical records, searching for any mention of Anna and Jakub. The cafe's atmosphere buzzed around them, but Victor and Elena were lost in their research. Slowly, pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. "Here," Elena said, pointing to an old newspaper article. "Anna Strahov, a young woman from a wealthy family, went missing in 1905. Her disappearance was a scandal, but it was never solved." Victor leaned in, reading the article. "And Jakub?" Elena continued to search, finally finding a connection. Jakub Vavra, an artist known for his dark, realistic paintings, was a contemporary of Anna's. There were rumors of a relationship between them, but nothing concrete. Victor's mind raced. So Jakub might have painted Anna, and somehow she became trapped in that painting. But why? And how do we free her? Elena looked thoughtful. There are old legends about artists who could capture a person's soul in their work. Maybe Jakub found a way to do that. If Anna's spirit is trapped, there might be a ritual or a method to release her. They decided to visit the National Gallery, hoping to find more of Jakub's works and possibly clues about the ritual. The grand hallways of the gallery were lined with paintings, each one telling a story from Prague's rich history. Victor felt a sense of awe and trepidation as they approached a section dedicated to Jakub Vavra. Jakub's paintings were dark and intense, each one capturing a moment of profound emotion and suffering. Elena and Victor examined them closely, looking for any hidden symbols or messages. One painting, in particular, caught their attention. It depicted a man standing in front of an easel, a shadowy figure watching from behind. "Look at the background," Victor said, pointing to the faint outline of symbols on the wall. "These could be part of the ritual." Elena nodded. "We need to find out what these symbols mean. They might be the key to freeing Anna." They took photographs of the symbols and returned to Elena's study, where she had access to a vast collection of ancient texts and manuscripts. The afternoon turned into evening as they worked tirelessly, decoding the symbols and piecing together the ritual. "It's a binding spell," Elena explained. "Jakub must have used it to trap Anna's spirit in the painting. To reverse it, we'll need specific items: a personal belonging of Anna's, a piece of Jakub's artwork, and a sacred relic from St. Vitus Cathedral." Victor felt a surge of determination. "We have to do this. Anna's been trapped for over a century. She deserves to be free." Elena agreed. "We'll start with the cathedral. The relic might be the hardest to obtain, but it's the most crucial part of the ritual. As night fell, Victor and Elena prepared for their quest. The weight of their mission pressed heavily on them, but they knew they had to succeed. The spirits of Prague's past were counting on them, and the shadows of Old Town held many secrets yet to be revealed. With a plan in place and resolve in their hearts, they set out into the night, ready to face whatever dangers awaited them. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but together, they would uncover the truth and bring peace to the restless spirits. The moon cast a silvery glow over Prague as Victor and Elena approached St. Vitus Cathedral. The imposing structure loomed against the night sky, its spires reaching like skeletal fingers toward the heavens. The cathedral, with its Gothic architecture and intricate stonework, was both beautiful and foreboding. As they approached the entrance, the massive wooden doors of the cathedral seemed to groan under the weight of centuries. Victor glanced at Elena, her face illuminated by the pale light. "We need to be careful. This place is old, and it's likely to be heavily guarded." Elena nodded, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "We'll have to avoid detection. The relic could be in a restricted area, and we don't want to attract unwanted attention." The cathedral was closed to the public at this hour, so they had to rely on their knowledge of its layout and the information they had gathered. Victor had been to St. Vitus before, but tonight it felt different, almost alive with an ancient energy. They sneaked around the side of the building, finding a small, rarely used service entrance. Inside, the cathedral was a maze of dark corridors and high vaulted ceilings. The air was cool and filled with the scent of incense and aged wood. Victor and Elena moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing softly as they made their way toward the treasure vaults where the relic was said to be kept. According to the records, the relic should be in a chamber beneath the main altar, Elena whispered. "We need to find the access to that chamber." They navigated through winding passageways, their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. Finally, they arrived at a heavy iron door marked with elaborate symbols. Victor examined the door, noticing that it bore the same symbols they had seen in Jakub's painting. "These symbols are definitely part of the ritual," Victor said, running his fingers over the engraved markings. "We need to figure out how to open this door." Elena pulled out a small notebook filled with her research and began comparing the symbols. "I think we need to align these symbols in a specific order. The ritual might have a sequence that activates the mechanism." They worked together, carefully manipulating the symbols. After several minutes of trial and error, the iron door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit staircase leading downward. The air grew colder as they descended, their breaths forming visible clouds in the frigid atmosphere. At the bottom, they found themselves in a large chamber, lined with shelves of relics and ancient artifacts. The room was illuminated by the flickering light of oil lamps, casting an otherworldly glow over the objects. In the center of the room stood a pedestal with a glass case containing a small, ornate relic, a golden cross with intricate engravings. "There it is," Elena said, her voice filled with awe. "The sacred relic." As they approached the pedestal, Victor noticed a series of traps set around the chamber, pressure plates and tripwires designed to protect the relic from thieves. "We need to be extremely careful. One wrong move, and we could set off an alarm." Elena nodded, carefully examining the traps. "I think we can avoid them if we move slowly and stay alert." They navigated the traps with precision, Victor holding his breath as Elena carefully lifted the glass case from the pedestal. The relic was even more beautiful up close, its gold gleaming in the dim light. With the relic safely in hand, they retraced their steps to the entrance. However, as they were about to leave, they heard footsteps approaching from the main hall. Panic surged through Victor. "We need to hide," Elena whispered urgently. They quickly found a nearby alcove and waited, holding their breaths as the footsteps grew louder. A group of guards entered the chamber, discussing routine checks. Victor and Elena remained hidden, their hearts pounding as the guards passed within inches of their hiding spot. After what felt like an eternity, the guards left, and Victor and Elena emerged from their hiding place. "That was too close," Victor said, his voice shaky. "Let's get out of here before we run into any more trouble." They made their way back through the corridors and out of the cathedral, the night air welcoming and cool against their flushed faces. With the sacred relic secured, They felt a surge of relief and accomplishment. But their journey was far from over. The next step in their quest was to retrieve a personal belonging of Anna's and a piece of Jakub's artwork. They knew that time was running short, and the restless spirit of Anna was depending on them to complete the ritual. As they walked away from St. Vitus Cathedral, Victor and Elena felt a renewed sense of determination. The shadows of Prague held many secrets, but they were now one step closer to uncovering the truth and freeing Anna's trapped spirit. The sun was rising over Prague, casting a warm glow across the city. Victor and Elena, tired but resolute, made their way to the old manor where Anna's personal belongings were kept. The manor, a sprawling estate with ivy-covered walls and weathered stone, was located on the outskirts of the city. It had been abandoned for years, falling into disrepair, yet it still held an air of faded grandeur. As they approached, Victor glanced at Elena. "We should be cautious. The manor's been empty for a while, but it's possible someone could have come across it." Elena nodded, her gaze focused on the dilapidated structure. "Let's find what we need quickly and get out." They entered through a side door, which creaked ominously. Inside, the manor was a labyrinth of dust-covered furniture and cobwebs. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. Victor and Elena moved cautiously, their footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust on the floor. They made their way to what once was Anna's study. The room was cluttered with old books, faded photographs, and forgotten trinkets. Victor began searching through a large wooden desk, while Elena combed through the shelves and drawers. After several minutes of searching, Elena found a small, ornate box hidden beneath a pile of old letters. "This could be it," she said, carefully opening the box. Inside, they found a delicate locket, a leather-bound journal, and several handwritten letters. The locket contained a portrait of a young woman, likely Anna, with an inscription on the back that read, "To my dearest Jakub." The journal, though aged and fragile, was filled with Anna's elegant handwriting. The letters were addressed to Jakub, filled with affectionate messages and details about their life together. "This journal might have the answers we need," Victor said, flipping through the pages. He found a passage describing Anna's growing fear of an unknown threat, hinting at a dark presence connected to Jakub's artwork. "There's something here about a hidden chamber within the manor," Elena noted, reading from the journal. "It might be where we can find more clues, or even Jakub's artwork." Following the directions in the journal, they searched for the hidden chamber. After a bit of effort, Victor found a concealed door behind a bookcase. The mechanism to open it was intricate, requiring a specific sequence of movements to unlock. Using clues from the journal, Victor managed to open the door. The hidden chamber was filled with Jakub's paintings, each depicting scenes of eerie landscapes and shadowy figures. The most striking was a large painting of Prague's old town, where the looming presence of a dark figure seemed to watch over the city. "This must be one of Jakub's final works," Victor said, examining the painting closely. "It's as if he knew something was coming." Among the paintings, they found a small, hidden compartment with a collection of old, meticulously detailed maps of Prague. One map was marked with symbols that matched those from the relics chamber in St. Vitus Cathedral. "This map shows hidden locations around Prague," Elena said, pointing to the markings. "It could lead us to more pieces of the puzzle." With the journal, the locket, and the maps in hand, Victor and Elena prepared to leave. As they exited the manor, Victor glanced at Elena. "We have what we need. Now we need to put it all together." Their next destination was to investigate the locations marked on the map, which might hold further clues to completing the ritual. As they drove through the early morning light, the city began to awaken. Victor and Elena knew they were racing against time. The shadows of Prague held many secrets, and the answers they sought were scattered across the city, hidden in plain sight. The sun rose higher, illuminating their path as they ventured deeper into the heart of Prague's mysteries. With each step, they were drawing closer to unraveling the truth and freeing Anna's spirit, but they knew the challenges ahead would test their resolve. The ancient clock tower in Prague's old town struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the cobblestone streets. Victor and Elena stood at the entrance of the old, abandoned church marked on the map. The church, a once majestic structure now reduced to crumbling ruins, was shrouded in darkness and mystery. Its spire, partially collapsed, cast long, sinister shadows against the moonlit sky. Victor held the leather-bound journal in one hand and the locket in the other, their significance growing clearer with each step. The journey through Prague's hidden locations had led them to this final site, and they could feel the weight of their mission pressing upon them. The church's heavy wooden doors groaned as they pushed them open, revealing a vast, dusty interior. Moonlight filtered through broken stained glass windows, casting eerie patterns on the floor. The air was cold and damp, carrying the faint scent of old incense and decay. As they stepped inside, the creaking of the floorboards seemed to announce their arrival to whatever awaited them. Elena glanced around, her eyes scanning the darkened corners. "This place is unsettling," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Victor nodded. According to the journal, the ritual to free Anna's spirit should be performed here. "We need to find the altar." They navigated through the ruined nave, moving carefully to avoid disturbing the fragile debris underfoot. The altar was located at the far end of the church, partially obscured by collapsed pillars and broken statues. The space around the altar seemed to hum with a palpable energy, as if the air itself was charged with anticipation. Victor approached the altar, where they set up the artifacts they had collected: the journal, the locket, and the maps. The journal provided detailed instructions for the ritual, describing a sequence of events that needed to be followed precisely. As they prepared, Victor and Elena noticed a strange feeling of unease creeping over them. The temperature dropped sharply, and a cold draft swept through the church. Shadows seemed to shift unnaturally, and an eerie silence enveloped the space. Elena's eyes widened as she noticed a dark figure emerging from the shadows. It was a spectral presence, its form indistinct but menacing. "Victor, look." The dark figure moved closer, and Victor could make out its features. It was the ghostly apparition of Jakub, his face twisted in a mixture of rage and despair. The presence was unmistakably linked to the dark force they had been fighting against. "Jakub," Victor called out, his voice steady despite the fear gripping him. "We've come to free Anna. Help us, and we can all find peace." The apparition's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. "You seek to undo what cannot be undone," it intoned, its voice a haunting echo. "The darkness will not be vanquished so easily." Elena, determined, stepped forward. "We know the darkness is powerful, but we have to try. Anna deserves to be freed from this torment." As they began the ritual, Victor recited the incantations from the journal, while Elena placed the locket on the altar. The words of the incantation resonated through the church, their echoes mingling with the whispers of the restless spirit. The dark figure hovered menacingly, but Victor and Elena pressed on, driven by their mission. The atmosphere grew increasingly intense, with supernatural forces swirling around them. The shadows in the church seemed to come alive, swirling and coiling in response to the ritual. Victor's voice grew louder, filled with conviction. "Anna, we're here for you. Release yourself from this curse." Suddenly, the dark figure of Jakub lunged forward, its form becoming more defined and aggressive. The apparition's presence intensified, threatening to disrupt the ritual. Victor and Elena braced themselves, fighting to maintain their focus despite the overwhelming force. As the final words of the incantation were spoken, a blinding light filled the church. The shadows recoiled, and the dark figure of Jakub let out a wail of anguish before dissipating into the light. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, leaving a sense of calm and relief in its wake. The church returned to its eerie silence, but the oppressive feeling had vanished. Victor and Elena, exhausted but triumphant, stood by the altar. The locket glowed softly, a sign that the ritual had succeeded. "We did it," Elena said, her voice filled with relief. Victor nodded, looking around the now peaceful church. "Anna's spirit is free. We've faced the darkness and prevailed." As they left the church, the first light of dawn began to break through the night. The city of Prague, bathed in the early morning light, seemed to welcome them back. Victor and Elena knew their journey had reached its end, but they also understood that the effects of their actions would resonate beyond this moment. The shadows of Prague had been confronted, and the past had been laid to rest. They walked away from the church, their hearts light with the knowledge that they had made a difference in the lives of those lost to darkness. The early morning sun cast a warm, golden glow over the city of Prague as Victor and Elena walked along the Charles Bridge, their steps lighter than they had been in days. The air was crisp and invigorating, carrying with it the promise of a new beginning. The weight of their recent ordeal seemed to have lifted, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and peace. The city, with its winding streets and historic charm, looked different now, almost rejuvenated. Victor and Elena took in the sights, the vibrant colors of the buildings, and the cheerful chatter of locals starting their day. The journey that had begun with uncertainty and fear had concluded with a resolution that had changed them both. As they reached the end of the bridge, Victor turned to Elena. "You know, it's strange to think how much we've been through. I can hardly believe it's all over." Elena smiled, her eyes reflecting the morning light. "It feels surreal, but I'm glad we made it through. The darkness that haunted Prague has been lifted, and Anna's spirit is finally at peace." They decided to visit a small cafe near the river, a cozy spot they had discovered during their earlier explorations. The cafe, with its charming decor and aromatic coffee, provided a perfect setting for reflection. They settled into a corner table, sipping their drinks as they talked about their experiences. Victor looked out the window, watching the river flow peacefully. "It's amazing how the city has transformed. The atmosphere feels lighter, more hopeful." Elena nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "It's like the city itself has been cleansed. The darkness we faced was a part of Prague's history, but now it's been confronted and dealt with." They reminisced about the challenges they had faced, from deciphering the clues to the intense confrontation in the abandoned church. Each moment of their journey had tested their resolve, but it had also brought them closer together. They had forged a bond through their shared experiences, one that went beyond mere friendship. As they talked, Victor reached into his bag and pulled out the leather-bound journal. "This journal has been with us through it all. It's not just a book, it's a symbol of our journey and the resolution we achieved." Elena took the journal, her fingers brushing over the worn cover. "It's a testament to our determination and the sacrifices we made. I think it deserves a place where it can be appreciated, not just as a relic of the past, but as a piece of Prague's history." They decided that the journal would be donated to a local museum, where it could be preserved and shared with future generations. It would serve as a reminder of the courage and resilience that had faced the shadows of Prague. With their mission complete and their hearts full of gratitude, Victor and Elena left the cafe and strolled through the city one last time. The streets, now bathed in the soft light of morning, seemed to welcome them as they walked. As they reached the old town square, Victor paused and turned to Elena. "Do you think we'll ever come back here?" Elena smiled, a sense of contentment in her voice. "I believe we will. Prague has a way of drawing people back. But for now, it's time for us to move forward." They embraced the city one last time, knowing that their adventure had left an indelible mark on both Prague and themselves. The resolution they had achieved was not just about freeing Anna's spirit, but about finding their own sense of purpose and connection. As they walked away from the old town square, the city's beauty and history enveloped them, a fitting end to their journey. The sun continued to rise, casting its warm glow over the streets, a symbol of hope and new beginnings. The shadows of Prague had been faced and overcome, and the city was ready to embrace its future. Victor and Elena, having completed their mission, looked ahead with anticipation, ready for whatever adventures lay beyond the horizon. If you enjoyed unraveling this, you're in for another spine-tingling tale. Click the video on your screen to discover more eerie stories from the Phantom Story Society, where history's darkest secrets come to life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Until next time, stay curious and beware of the shadows.